Okay, hi. Welcome everyone to the KM in the AM presentation. And I got to start by saying, um, sometimes people have said to us, what, KM in the AM? Like thinking no, it's like knowledge mobilization in the morning. That's how it started. It's always sessions we do in the morning. That's the AM. So I definitely know that there had been people confused about it. I'm thinking, well, it was sort of a simple title, but maybe they thought it was going to be different than it was originally. So so my name is Fleur McQueen Smith. I've worked in research writing, editing, grant management, and knowledge translation well, I've worked in writing like for my whole career, at least 25 years. I've worked in knowledge mobilization since it started getting sort of talked about in Canada, which was about 2004. So I guess that's 20 years where it started getting sort of popular. Right now, I manage a network that's funded by the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, so our large federal health research funder. It's an Indigenous health research network, so I manage it in the province of Saskatchewan. And then there are networks across the country, and there's also a coordinating center for this, for all of these networks that I'm involved with as well. And knowledge mobilization is very much part of our work at these NEAR networks. They stand for Network Environments for Indigenous Health Research, and the funder calls them NEARS. And so we kind of got that acronym too. We're sort of used to it now. And I'll hand it over to Bonnie.
Well, I'm Bonnie Zink, and I perform knowledge mobilization in the wild. I'm a freelance consultant and have worked with Fleur for 18 or so years on different projects. As Fleur said, I'm also a trained writer. That's how I started my career. And I got into using my writing skills for promoting health research. And then that led to research communications, which led to knowledge mobilization, which leads us right here where we are now. Fleur and I we started KM in the AM in a lot of years ago because we saw a hole. The training didn't exist in Saskatchewan, so we decided to make it exist.
Yes, so we did start in 2014. And originally, KM in the AM was just based in the city that we were both living in at the time, and I still live in, which is Saskatoon in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is a prairie province in Canada. I'm imagining we have probably lots of non-Canadians, but maybe you know more about Saskatchewan now because of Chapel Rowan singing about it. So it does actually exist. So a prairie province with about 1 million people, and Saskatoon is its largest city. So yeah, we're still hoping Chapel will come. So, and we want her to come to Saskatoon. Bonnie might want her to come to Regina, which is the other major city in Saskatchewan, and that's where Bonnie lives now. Anyway, so Bonnie and I had been like going to sort of online events and conferences like this one, and we had gone to some training, but it was never in Saskatchewan. We always had to leave and go somewhere else. And we did know that there was, in Ontario, they were running a KM in the AM sort of breakfast meeting. This was probably at about 2012. And, we were trying to get something going and trying to look around for something. And then eventually we're like, why don't we just do it? So why don't we do it off the sides of our desks? And that's kind of how it started. So it was originally, it was an in-person meeting in Saskatoon, and it was focused really more on people in Saskatoon because it was in person. And we just started, we pulled a couple other people in and we started having kind of casual, meetings. It was set up as a community of practice. So we would have someone come and present, and then we would have discussion. So, and it was really just because this is what we were looking for, and we wanted to see, are there other people that are interested and like-minded that we can bring in on this? So I'm going to the next slide, Bonnie.
All right, so yes, when we started this, we started with only about maybe 12 to 25 people. And our membership has now grown to just over 350 people now across Saskatchewan and Canada, and some in the States. And we've got a few from Australia and from England as well. In 2014, like she said, we really couldn't find the training that we needed to have. And it was also expensive. Budgets were tight. So we started this as a high quality offering. We keep it free to our members. And the only thing you need to do to become a member is click on the sign up URL that I put in the chat, and or that I will put in the chat. Sorry, it's went to. Anyways, I'll put that in the chat and you can sign up for free. So KM in the AM as a community of practice really worked well. It keeps our members engaged. And the thing that I hear most from our members about this community of practice is that we encourage outliers. So if you want to be just an outlier, you can stay an outlier. You don't have to participate actively if you don't want to. Our process is how we communicate is through email. It is always email. We keep it simple. And what we do is we send out promotions about what's coming up next, because since COVID, we have turned to an online model. And it's very easy to bring in the experts from across the world to talk about things like AI and knowledge mobilization. We've had just AI focused ones. We've had, and we've also started to record our meetings. And what we've been putting them up on YouTube, and we've been getting a lot of rewatches. So thank you to our community who is keeping this active, and it does work best as a community of practice. And like I said, we keep it very simple. And I try to send out takeaways after our sessions. We send out resources from our presenters, and we've got a really great spread of presentations that we cover the whole gamut of knowledge mobilization. We teach folks how to do it, because in today's grant world, almost every granting agency, and Fleur, correct me if I'm wrong, they all require a robust knowledge mobilization plan that isn't just, I'll put up a website, attend a conference, or create a poster. It's a lot more involved than that. And Fleur and I are putting that knowledge out there to help not only new PhDs, but to help older researchers as well who may not know how to do this work. Go ahead, Fleur.
Yeah, we attract a lot of students and community members too. So
Mhm.
yeah, like Bonnie was saying, we really started with sort of small in-person meetups, and we were kind of like, a couple of times a year. I mean, the strength of a community of practice approach is you sort of like whoever is interested comes to the table. People can participate as much as they want or as little as they want. You need a few core people that keep things running. And Bonnie and I have always kind of been those core people, but we've gathered other people around us on our committee over time. And, we've sort of kind of ebbed and flowed in terms of, how our meetings have gone. And then, as soon as COVID hit, it was like a big change. And we hadn't really done anything online before that because we had always thought of it as an in-person community. But then, everything was an online community suddenly. And, once we started moving more into online, we've kind of really embraced that. We always did have a regular newsletter with MailChimp for like telling people about what's coming up and surveying them about anything that they were interested in hearing about or suggestions for speakers. And, once we move more into the sort of keeping things online, prior to that, we didn't record anything when we were in person. And even when we started with some online things, we weren't thinking really about recording. But then we just decided, well, why not put things on a YouTube channel? So it's easy, and lots of people will come watch afterwards, or if they couldn't get to a session, or if they want to see it again. It's been very popular. Bonnie's put a bunch of links I'm seeing into the chat, and also at any point, like if you have questions or want to discuss anything, we have lots of time at the end, but we're like very happy to answer any kinds of questions sort of during as well. So. Yeah. So like Bonnie said, main mailing list with, through MailChimp is our main mode of communication. We do use, Facebook where we put up like something that, next things that are coming up. But I think that people sort of look for it in their inbox now, and they're used to it. They can find us easily on that. We didn't ever really build a website because it never seemed to be something that we needed a website for. And so, between the MailChimp newsletters, some things on Facebook, and then things being on YouTube, that's really been the main way we've, stayed in touch with folks. And over the years, we've grown to a much larger community. And the other thing, with the electronic newsletter like MailChimp, you can kind of see when people are signing up and when people are leaving, and we haven't had very many people drop off. So, and we usually get a lot of people like looking at the newsletters. You can also tell that in something like MailChimp, which is very useful.
I think the number is maybe 3% over the 10 years we've been running. People have dropped off just because they weren't interested anymore, and not because they didn't like our content. It just wasn't applicable. So yeah, our numbers are really great for a community of practice of this sort. The new thing we've been doing is a quarterly newsletter this year. So we've had 3 go out. A lot of the content is around AI. I specialize in what I do. I specialize in AI and coaching folks on AI and using it for good. So I try to bring a lot of AI tools and actually useful information. And it's one thing that our membership has told us that they want to know more about. So we're looking for experts to come in to do more AI content for the community of practice. It's not going away, so we might as well learn how to use it, but learn how to use it well and ethically and responsibly. And you can see by the titles of our newsletters there that yeah, there is a AI aspect to this. I think I can tell you right now a few ways that I do use AI for this community of practice. And one way that's really been received well is that we have, for each event, we have a sign up. And you fill out the information, typical your email address, what do you do, where do you do it, that sort of thing. And what I'll do is a few days before the presentation, and once the sign-up seemed to slow down, I will go into a spreadsheet and I will use AI to pull out certain insights. And it's insights that are helpful to our presenters. So it's insights like, what role do most of the attendees identify with? So are they administrators? Are they researchers? Are they community workers? Are they in a nonprofit? So we can get a really good insight of who's coming, and that helps our presenter actually tailor the information and resources that they give you. Because we know who you are and we know where you're coming from. And 9 times out of 10, we know what your pain points are, and you've given us questions that you would like answered going in, which makes a much more valuable experience with the presentation. Because you're comfortable and our presenter is comfortable and they know who's coming. We get about a 50 to 60% attendance rate. So, people sign up. Not everybody attends, but it's been around 50 to 60% of the sign up numbers that do come. And we get anywhere between 50 and 75 people signing up to participate in the webinars. Like I said, out of 300 people, that's actually not a bad rate. But what we've been noticing is that people are connecting with the newsletter, and they're also connecting with the YouTube channel a lot more than I thought they would. And it's not that we're particularly advertising that we have a YouTube channel out there. It's mostly just for our community of practice members, but we're getting, our numbers are ticking up. The more people that are coming from research institutions and the like. So you've got I put all the links in the chat. You can sign up to the community of practice. We are on Facebook, like Fleur said, which usually is just, we announce things there, YouTube, and we've got a LinkedIn group, and we have a LinkedIn presence. So you can connect with us on those. We do not use Twitter/X. But we haven't really gone into Blue Sky or any of the other things. Like I said, we're keeping this we're keeping it simple, and it is off the sides of our desk. Although Fleur's organization, the Sask Near Network, supports us extremely well. So thank you, Fleur. We initially started this journey by saying we wanted to keep it out of the academy, so we don't want to be directed by any university or institution. We wanted to keep it somewhat separate from that, which I think gives our members a little more freedom of what they can request us to talk about. And we committed at the beginning to keep it free. So those are the two things that we really think about going forward. We want to provide high quality educational experience, but we're not going to charge you for it. And just our members' participation and what we hear back is so entirely it's very valuable. We do have a committee and the committee meets a couple times a year, and we will set a direction for what we want to learn over the next year or so. And our committee includes folks from, the university, the vice president of research office. We've got Saskatchewan Polytechnic, which is another school here in Saskatchewan, and community colleges. We have representation from community colleges as well. We also have a representation from the business on our committee, and it makes a really good mix, and we get really great ideas, and this is how we can actually provide this sort of education to our members. Go ahead, Fleur.
All right. So really, we really are happy that we kind of try and have a thoughtful design around our knowledge mobilization, and to do it in an ethical way that, all of our work is sort of grounded that way. Bonnie and our training is in sort of communications and community-based research. That's always where we've worked. So we've always, been thinking about the ethics of research with non-researchers. And so part of that for us, as we've moved more into a technology space, is really thinking about how things are accessible and how we work thoughtfully with people. And I think this, is probably of use for audiences a lot around disability and rehabilitation as well, because these are all things that you are thinking about as well in terms of your ethical practice with people that you're working with. So there are good, strong guidelines around, especially the University of Saskatchewan has developed a lot of guidelines around generative AI use, and it's also developed an instance of Copilot for use specifically within the university, which is useful for us. So we have access to that. And they've also published quite a few guidelines around teaching and research. And I think we're really only at the very beginning of this, because we're just starting to figure out some of the AI work. And, the presentation now is kind of going to move more into Bonnie's space, since she's such an expert in this area. And she can then share some insights about some of this generative AI, because there's so much happening, and it's just hard to keep up with. I'm thinking we had a very interesting session at KM in the AM a few months back on the internet and AI, and sort of what's coming. And it was from a scholar who's done work around the work of Marshall McLuhan, like the medium is the message. And he was really just talking about, this is just a new medium that we're exploring. He talked about, like, Marshall McLuhan really went up to the television age, and then didn't go beyond that. And this speaker, and Bonnie, it would be great if you put a link to his talk in, because I think that lots of people would be interested in seeing it. It just really gave me a whole new perspective about how to think about these things as tools. And so, tools can be positive or tools can be negative. It's really, how you interact with the tools. Tools on their own, like you can't have anything in AI without humans' involvement and humans using them as tools. So, and we've certainly seen, positive and negative uses of some of this AI. And Yeah, actually, Bonnie, I'm going to hand this over to you here because we will have such expertise. I'm going to look for that, and because we're going on for you talking, I'm going to go look for that specific talk and see if I can put it in the chat because it was so
Yeah,
it was so good. I've watched it a few times now.
great. That would be perfect. So AI in the academic space, it is a hot topic. I work with academics, I work with writers, and I work with nonprofits around using AI for good. And whenever we use AI, ethics and transparency in the academic space is extremely important. So we have a lot of information that we send out about ethics and using AI responsibly. Fleur mentioned AI guidelines. Most institutions have guidelines that you can look at. I know we do in Canada, especially in Saskatchewan. Both the University of Saskatchewan and the University of Regina have fairly good guidelines to not only guide faculty, but also to guide students. If you are teaching or working with students in any way, don't kid yourself. They are using AI and they can use it better than you. They've been using it for a few years now. And so, if we want our folks to be ethically trained, then we have to provide that sort of education. So it's up to us to teach people, to teach our students how to use AI in an ethically responsible manner. Uh, when we talk about using AI uh, in a way such as I see Fleur, you put it right in the chat already. This particular presentation was very interesting because he was talking about AI as the medium, right? So Marshall McLuhan's work is very important there. But if we look back to even in the 1800s when the printing press was invented, we are asking the exact same questions as they asked back then about the new technology. When we first had the internet come into our homes, we're asking the similar questions. How's it going to affect us? What's it going to do? Where are we headed? Even as far as when social media became a thing for everybody, we asked these very same questions. And I don't think we answered these questions really well as humans. But bigger brains than mine are going to figure that out. But if you want to look at some really great stuff to sort of help guide your own use, you can look at the European guidelines and the guidelines from the World Health Organization as well. There's a lot of guidelines out there that are great, and there's some that are not so great. So if you can't find guidelines that meet your requirements, I urge you to create your own guidelines. I am very honest and open about the fact that I use AI all day long. I absolutely love it. It's a technology that allows me to be better. So let me say right in this space, don't let it write for you. You got to stay in the driver's seat. It can't do anything for you because it's really great at giving you mediocre stuff. But if you want great stuff, that's where you put your human brain in and you use it going forward. You can't take yourself out of the mix. You can't just throw something at AI and say, write it for me. It's never going to be as good as what you could do yourself. But in the context of KM in the AM, I mean, I'm using AI in the newsletter. I'm using AI to summarize things. I'm using different AIs to do different things. If I'm working on something that's particularly academic, I will use the large language model Perplexity. If I'm working inside Google Docs or inside anything in the Google environment, I use Gemini. If I'm working on anything in the Microsoft environment, I will use Copilot. And you probably have access to some of these tools. If you don't have access to these tools, please email me and I can send you some information about how to get access to some of these tools. That will make what you do better. It will enhance you. It will free up time. I've had one coach, I did one coaching session with a gal who is a student. She's working on her master's degree. She manages a cross Canada mental health network. She's very, very busy. She also has a teenager. And we actually saved her 2 full days a week using AI. Could you imagine what you could do with 2 full days a week? She had a lot of replication in her in her work practice. She was doing a lot of translation back and forth between French and English, as Canada is a bilingual country, so you'll find that a lot. We searched and searched for a tool that would actually do Canadian French, which is different than Parisian French. And we did find a few tools that are working for her. So with a little ingenuity and by using your own creativity, AI can actually do a lot for you. And it has helped me streamline the work processes I use managing KM in the AM. Because as Fleur said, this is off the side of our desk. We're not getting paid to do this work. So we have to be as efficient as we can be. And keep people informed, keep things moving, find speakers, develop sessions, sometimes working with the speaker to develop a session that would speak to our membership. So AI is tremendously helpful in all of those things. And it's trial and error at this point. We are kind of still in the wild west of AI. It's not being regulated as of yet. So I suggest you have fun with it now because it's pretty awesome. Go ahead, Fleur. Yeah, I think we've kind of talked about this one a little bit.
I can advance to the next slide.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I went into that a little bit. Yeah, so but it's questions. So what do you want to know? Right. So we've used technology from the start to manage. We've used MailChimp from the start, which it gives us so much data that we can now, 10 years later, actually have things to tell people, like our 3% drop off rate. Usually when you send out a newsletter, in fact, it's been my experience in other newsletters, you get somebody's dropping off every single time because they sign up for something free and then they just don't want it anymore. We don't have that in KM in the AM, and I think it's because we have been thoughtful about who we invite to not only present information, but who we invite to our community of practice. So I can tell you that we have a lot of research administrators in our community of practice. We have a couple from the corporate world. We have one person who works at Cameco, which is a mining company here in Canada, and they've been part of KM in the AM since our very first day. I can tell you that we have an extremely high click-through rate because we know what our community of practice wants. We really understand our audience. And so it really puts our numbers up higher. MailChimp is really good at showing you kind of an average in your specific area. And ours is always higher because we understand what our community of practice needs. And I've been able to get more insights about that from AI. Because, AI will help me get to those insights faster. Because it literally minutes for something that would take you and I hours or even days or weeks to figure out. We can do it in minutes now. And it's quite an amazing space to be in. I see Fleur put our email addresses in there. Please email us if you have questions. Felice, I think if you have something you'd like us to talk about, let's talk about it.
Sure. Thank you, Bonnie and Fleur. I do just have a couple of questions. So you talked about how how KM in the AM has evolved from small in-person gatherings to this global digital community with over 300 members. Can you speak more about what you've learned in maintaining a sense of community and trust as that engagement shifts? Bonnie, you had mentioned that what your audience wants to learn about, wants to know more about. Can you speak more about how you've come to those findings?
Sure. So first of all, I don't email you constantly. It's not weekly. It's not monthly. It's when we have something to say. And when we have something to say that we feel will help you and be valuable to you as a community member. That's not always easy to do. I mean, we've gone through ebbs and flows because it's strictly volunteer. There's been times where we haven't had any sessions for months, even almost a year at one point, because of what was going on in our professional and personal lives. When somebody new joins our community, I reach out. So I want to know who they are, what they do, why they do it. And if you are a member of our community, please drop that in the chat. I'd love to know if we have any KM in the AM people out there. So I will email you and I will say, hey, here's who I am, here's what I do, and I want to know exactly the same from you. So I reach out personally to these folks, and I think that gives them a better sense of what they've just signed up for. I survey our membership very little. However, I do on the occasion survey them to find out what they want to learn, who they want to learn it from. And it's an extremely short survey. It's 3 questions. It's what do you want to learn? Who do you want to learn it from? And tell us anything else you want us to know. And I keep it simple. So when I do that survey, it's a very high return rate because it doesn't take hours or days to fill out. It's very simple. I keep our membership engaged by sending out newsletters from our KM in the AM address, which is kmintheamyxe@gmail.com. And so if you're a member of our community, that's where you'll find your information coming from. And we are honest. We're not selling anything. We never sell. We never share your information with anybody. So this has, I think, in answer to your question, Felice, this has been part and parcel of what's created that trust. And we have been attracting, some of the movers and the shakers in the industry that we work in. So, like David Phipps from York University, who is considered one of the leading experts in knowledge mobilization here in Canada. He'll come and regularly participate. And actually, he's the one we stole KM in the AM from. They used to have at York University, they would meet every Wednesday mornings about once a month, and it was a space to bring community and research together. And Fleur and I really liked the name KM in the AM. It just kind of flows off your tongue in a sing-songy way. And so
we did ask him though, Bonnie. Remember, we did ask.
I did say, actually, I kind of said, David, we're going to use this. Is that okay? And he said, yes, you can keep using it. They don't do KM in the AM anymore. They've got something different going on called Dr. Rick, which is also very interesting. But yes, we borrowed the name and we kept it. And our events happen very regularly on Wednesday mornings between 9 and 10:30. And that's another way that we've created trust and stability in our membership, is because they know what we're about, and they know when to expect or what to expect in their email. And they also know that sessions happen Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And it's not, we're not kind of all over the place. I think that saved us by we had a slide earlier about being very thoughtful and deliberate about what we do and how we do it. And Fleur, there's a question for you from Kathleen there in the chat. So
in terms of, I don't know. So we talk about KM in all kinds of different areas, and we have access because we have, 2 universities that we're quite involved with, we have access to lots of people working in different areas. So I don't know if we've often had questions come up where we can't find somebody that is, sort of working in that area. And especially once we've moved more online, we've had people present that are, in other provinces. I don't know that we've had anybody outside Canada present, because I think we've focused much more on Canada. What do you know, Bonnie? You probably would know.
No, it's been Canadians and mostly Canadians.
Yeah. So there's
never been a topic that comes back from our survey that we couldn't find somebody to talk about it.
Yeah. So I guess we've just been lucky in that aspect. And I mean, yeah, we've talked about KM in research, just in, all different kinds of research. So, although Bonnie and I have worked in the health space and do work in the health space, we haven't like kept it just to that. And I think even this week, somebody from engineering reached out to Bonnie, somebody that we had met through some other work that we had done with KM and the AM, and she wants to, offer to do a session around women in STEM. And, it looked really interesting, and there's definitely a KM aspect to it. So I think she's going to be doing a session coming up. Bonnie, we have had quite a few people come to us wanting to present, haven't we?
Yeah, and that's the other part is that, we've been going for 10 plus years now, so we have a really good standing in our communities. And when people want to get their message out there, they do ask us if they can present. And we have yet to turn anybody down. So anybody on this call right now, if you are working in a space where you're doing knowledge mobilization or knowledge translation, please reach out, because we'd love to have you come present it at a KM in the AM.
Yeah, I'm curious with Kathleen's questions about what specific things they haven't been really able to answer, or is it just areas of research or it's areas that are like not researched very much yet that are of high interest to their community? That's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So Kathleen did add another comment. She said, for us, the questions about use of emergent tech and KT are examples of the type that can be hard to address in an evidence-based way. Most of the studies are not done yet.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh yeah, looks like we want to share the links again. Yeah, I mean, we sort of have relied on speakers to bring, the evidence base that they have. And for sure, there's things that are not, we don't really, when they have only emerging evidence or things that aren't well researched yet. That's just the nature of research, isn't it? So, but I guess we've always been able to find people that are sort of working in these spaces to present on what they know about them. So, yeah. And we've been careful too about speakers that we've picked, like, in terms of, we kind of vet them first about their, what is their background. Most of them come to us through recommendations. So, yeah. Oh, best available information. Yeah, that's Kathleen. That I would say that's a great way to put it.
Because you're right. These studies just aren't there yet. I mean, there's some publications coming out about using generative AI in the science fields mostly, and higher education. There's a lot of publication happening there, but even there, the conclusions aren't there yet, because we're still so new with this emergent technology that it's kind of exciting in a way, because we can drive this. It's not going away. Like, it's people who refuse to use it, I think, are going to get left behind. You're not going to get replaced by AI, but somebody who knows how to use that technology probably can come up behind you and replace you in a much more efficient way. And organizations are always looking for more efficiency and for us to do more with less time and resources. And generative AI is one tool that you can use if you give it a chance. I think you can use it to improve what you do and enhance what you do, which is now going back to presenters. There's a young lady at U of S, Edwards School of Business, and her name is Anne Liang, and she has been doing she's a librarian, so she's on the cutting edge of some of this. She knows what's coming down the pike, and we did have her do a session where she discussed the environmental impact of using these emergent technologies, which is extremely interesting. So if you go over to our YouTube channel, it's actually on the YouTube channel, and I suggest that you watch it. It's not something we think about for whatever reason. We just don't automatically think that, every time I ask a question of ChatGPT, what's the impact of that machine use? It goes to a data center somewhere, cooling the machines, the extra people going to work every day using petroleum-based energy. There's just lighting it, the electricity it takes. Like, what is the actual impact of me using AI to ask questions about certain things. And is it negligible? Is it something to be concerned about? You know, we don't really have a full answer there yet, but there is definitely, I mean, everything we do nowadays in technology, even just running your laptop, there's an impact that happens there. And it's an interesting thing to follow. Here in Canada, we also have an interesting thing that's happening. Universities and journals are going to court to figure out who sets the guidelines and who polices those guidelines. So ultimately, who tells you what you can and can't publish when you use these tools? Do you have to cite these tools? Well, that's problematic because you typically can only cite humans. These are not humans. So how do we address that if you use a chat GPT to say, outline your article, but then the rest of it's all you? Do you say I used chat GPT to outline this article? Well, I always suggest people be as open and honest and transparent as possible. And in fact, when I do presentations about using generative AI in these spaces, I do have a disclaimer saying that I have worked with certain tools to create images, to create outlines, to sometimes, pull in information from somewhere else. It helps me write faster. And I appreciate that. And I'm excited about that. So I do share that.
So, Bonnie, when we're on the topic of AI, you emphasize that thoughtful design and accessible technology are essential to effective knowledge mobilization. But there's also some tension around AI that you alluded to in your presentation. How can you ensure accessibility and ethical alignment for all of the audiences?
So my audiences, the ones I specifically work with, are concerned about slightly different things. So academics, it's mostly bias and transparency and the ethics and all of that. When we're dealing with writers actually fear AI because as a writer, if anybody can write with AI, what's our role in the world now? Where do we fit? There is no so it's my job to come in and kind of alleviate that fear and mitigate that for them, because it's not true. AI is not going to take over writing for us. It doesn't have our experiences. It doesn't have our soul. It doesn't have the spark that we connect with when someone tells us a story, whether that's on page or in person. Nonprofits, though, are a different story. Nonprofits are very excited about AI because nonprofits, in Canada at least, we typically work with fewer resources from just, being supported economically, as well as just having the people in place to do certain jobs. So if you don't have an HR person on staff, then you can use AI to sort of help you through that process. Maybe write a job ad or help you figure out who it is who's applying, and figure all of that out from an HR perspective. For myself, I use it if I'm working on a budget. I'll use AI to sort of help me figure out what percentage of dollars go here, what goes there, and that sort of thing. And then I'll talk to somebody who's really great with budgets, like Fleur, and I'll say, Fleur, does this make sense? And then Fleur will tell me whether it makes sense or not. Then I can take that budget and go to maybe an actual budget person, but now I have a place where I can start that conversation, and I have some of the base knowledge going into that conversation that I need for that conversation to be efficient and valuable.
Great.
Oh, yes.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
No, go ahead. I was just going to address Sean there about what about
Yep.
AI and writing. I'm not sure if you're asking me, should you use AI to do technical writing, or
I put a comment in hoping that Sean could elaborate a little bit more. So, yeah.
But yeah, no, AI can help you in a lot of places. Just remember, it's a tool. It's a machine. It's not your friend. It's not the place you go to get advice on your love life. It's not your personal financier. It's not your personal doctor. Remember, just use your common sense. The biggest thing here's the biggest do not put personal information into AI. If you have a database of health information, say, and it's not de-identified, you do not use any AI on that, right? If you wouldn't put it out there for public consumption, don't put it into a chatbot. Because even though they say, it's safe and all of this, once you go digital, it can be out there forever. So just use your common sense, right? Don't put your income tax into ChatGPT. That would be a bad idea. But if you have questions, and you want to know where to go to ask a question, that you can ask ChatGPT. Say, hey, I have a question about my income tax. Who would be the best person to ask for that? Don't ask ChatGPT for the advice. Ask ChatGPT how to figure out how to get that advice, if that makes sense. Yeah, writing's not taken over by AI. Like I said before, it's great at mediocrity. It makes mistakes. It tries to answer your question to the best of its ability, but remember, it's a predictive model, so it's basically guessing what word comes next. It's not thinking. It's not doing any of that. It has absolutely no soul. There's no soul. There is no personality. There is no spark that makes us human. Think about when you read your favorite novelist, right? AI cannot produce that novel in the same way that author did. It just is, that's just not possible, right? So, now, if I'm doing tech writing, which is really, really boring, yeah, I'm going to use AI.
It would be exciting to other people, possibly, but
it's not. But I have to run it. That's a tool that I'm using, right? So I'm hoping I've built enough expertise among the people that I work with that they come to me and ask those questions or want those particular products. But here's something fun to try, Sean. Take a little bit of your writing, put it in ChatGPT, and then ask it to make it sarcastic, or to make it humorous, or to turn it into a script for a play, or to turn it into like something else. And it can help you turn it into something else. But once you start reading it, you're going to find out that it's missing a whole bunch of nuances that you, as the human, bring to that particular project. I hope that answers your question, Sean.
Well, and I think the other thing too is that you always, like, in terms of whether AI will take over forms of tech writing, I think AI might be able to assist, but it makes mistakes. Like every time we put things into AI, we see, Bonnie and I, we see things that I remember I was trying to look up the bio of somebody or other, and I thought, oh, well, I'll just ask Copilot if they can find, places that are bios. And, it listed an award this person had. And I thought, that's funny. I've never heard of that award. Well, I don't know where it got that award from. That award didn't exist. So you always are going to have things that are like incorrect. I mean, I was talking to a computer science expert really about, AI. And what he said is, what AI does is it goes out and it gets everything it can find. It goes scrapes across the internet, and then it gives you what it sounds like would be a good answer. Not what is the answer, but what an answer might sound like if it was a good answer. So I thought, oh, that's an interesting way of thinking about it, because there is no thinking that goes into it. And I remember there's a satirical comedy show in Canada, and there was something about like changing time zones to like there's one time zone that we have that's half an hour. I think it's half an hour ahead of the other time zones instead of an hour. All the others are an hour. So there was some joke about it moving that time zone around, and it was in like a satirical like online thing. And then it got started up into the internet, and the AI was reporting that there was a very odd time zone in one part of Canada from this one source. So I think we always have to be so cognizant about, what has been getting fed in for AI. So yes, for sure, I think AI could do a lot in technical writing, and it probably already is, but you are never going to get away from needing that human oversight aspect.
No, you can't. We're not going to get to Skynet yet. If you ask any of the chatbots, ask them to give you 5 resources on whatever the topic is that you're working on, and just ask them to give you 5 resources. including the DOIs. And what you're going to get back is some really great looking resources. And in fact, ChatGPT likes to add little summaries as well. But once you start clicking through on the links, these actually don't exist. And so you've got to be really, really careful with what you ask AI to do for you, because it's going to just try to make you happy and give you what it thinks you want. But then that leads us to the other issue. If you want to use AI in any way that's going to help you, you really need to learn how to formulate questions in a way that that particular large language model likes to address the topic. So each one is different. There's all sorts of prompt engineering and prompt formats out there and all sorts of things. You'll learn by experimentation how each one likes to get their ChatGPT likes to be creative. Gemini likes things straightforward. Just give it the facts, give it what you want, and it'll do what you tell it. Like Perplexity is one of the more academic in nature. So if you ask Perplexity for any sources, about 60% of them will exist and the other 40% don't exist. And so you're just going to find that with different ones, they are going to lead you astray. So always double check and vet whatever AI gives you. I find it most useful in my work to edit my work. I hate copy editing. I don't like editing my own work. None of us, any writer will tell you the same thing. I like using Gemini to do a copy edit of whatever I'm writing because it's the faster one and it already knows how I write. It knows my style. And it actually does a really good job of copy editing a piece before I send it on to anyone else. So yeah, it's right now there's really no definitive answers to how we should use AI or should we use it or why we're using it. That's what makes it fun. For me, it's fun. I love just testing it out. And I've actually had Copilot tell me one time it no longer will answer my questions because we've talked about this subject long enough. It was pretty funny. So have fun with it. Especially there is a role for it in the academic space. There's a role for it in whatever industry you're working in. But just please don't have it do the work for you. You're the expert, right? You're the one with the experience. You're the one with the knowledge.
So, Bonnie and Fleur, as we wrap up this presentation, it appears that KM and the AM is a relatively small organization. Can you share how you were able to learn how to use AI, and are there publicly available resources for building one's own capacity? I'm seeing in the chat that companies have their own guidelines, but what did you two rely on when you were first getting into AI work?
So for me, I just jumped in the deep end and learned how to swim. That's the way I do. I'm an early adopter of most technology, and I literally jumped in and figured it out. There are many sources out there, and I will provide to you, Felice. We actually our committee at KM in the AM, we wrote a prompting book about prompting in the academic space, and I can share that with you, and you can share that with people after the fact. And other resources, like I said, go to your institutions. Wherever you work, go to your institution. You might be surprised at how many resources they have. It just came across my desk today. MIT has a 6-week course on using AI in the academic and business space, and it'll only cost you $5,500. We're free, by the way. So sign up. We're free. We are budget friendly. But yes, just we work in Canada, and I know there's other folks from around the world on this call, and but I can't speak to those. In Canada, the Canada guidelines, we've had guidelines on using AI for a few years now. And if you go to the Canadian government website, there's some very good guidelines there. You'll find it once you get the resource book that I just talked about. The sources section in the end has really great sources, including the ones that Fleur and I have talked about here. I know, Fleur, you have fun with AI. You were experimenting with AI in PowerPoint there for a while.
Yeah, somewhat. And I remember I was at a conference recently, and there was a discussion section at the end, and we were all sort of in small groups, and we had to, people were writing things down on a big spreadsheet, and then the facilitator said, "Oh, now with everything that you've written down, pick out two main points." And people are like, "Oh, how do we actually summarize this?" And all. So while they were doing that, I typed everything into Copilot, and I got it to summarize. And then I sort of read it back out to people. What do you think? How do you think this sounds? And then one guy at the table said, "Oh, we have Copilot at our university, but I've never understood how I'd ever use it." And he said, "Now I can see how I'd use it." So sometimes it's just once you start using it a bit more, I think you get other ideas about how you might use it. So yeah, it's very good at sifting through large amounts of data. I was at a different conference where there were epidemiologists, and they were talking about the use of AI because, in epidemiology, you're always looking at trends or with what's going on in the population around health. And so the speaker was saying, we really need to use these kinds of tools to sift through all the stuff that we need to do, to help us sift through things so that we can focus on the higher level things where we really need our brains for them in terms of addressing these issues. Yeah. Oh, somebody's commented that they just got Copilot at work and it is fun.
Use it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Just have fun. And if you have a question, email me. I'd love to know what your experience is. I am working on another handbook that is about AI use cases. So email me if you're using AI in a fun and interesting way, and we'll talk about how to get it into my handbook.
Great. Well, thank you, Bonnie and Fleur, for this very informative conversation and presentation.